What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Fanatics View Hockey Show. I am James Lynch. Happy to welcome back one of my good friends, one of the best when it comes to talking all things Ottawa Senators. You can find all his work over there at the Hockey News. Andrew Sztein. Andrew, what's up, man? How are you?
How's it going? I thought we were talking about the Blue Jays World Series today.
Well, I didn't want to bring up bad memories, man. I feel bad. Now I know what Leaf fans are going through, right? So it's except that would require actually getting to the finals. So yeah, that's fair. But yeah.
I saw Toronto heartbreak first hand
yes,
in the seats.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, let's talk about the Sens, because last time I had you on, we were sort of doing projections for the season. It was kind of like what's going to happen, and I think right now, the Sens, from my lens anyways, is the Sens are kind of doing what we thought they would be in the hunt. Maybe it would be nice if they were doing a bit better. I know there's been a bit concerned about the goaltending, but just what are sort of the expectations where the team is now compared to at the start of the season? Is it pretty much where you think they were going to end up at this point in the season?
Striking distance of a playoff spot. And if you've taken a look at the East recently, I think the difference between first place and last place is like 6 points, which in like late November is totally unheard of. Usually at least a couple of teams are running away with the lottery odds or first place. And yeah, everybody is just crammed in there. So last week, Sens were tied for first in the division. I believe now they are 1 point out of a playoff spot.
Yeah, I'm looking at the standings. We got them up here right now. Yeah, so they're tied with Tampa Bay. I mean, it just goes to show you how there's been a lot of parity in this league. That Tampa Bay is like struggling to get a playoff spot at this stage in the season as well. So
Florida and Toronto near the bottom. Yep.
Yeah, I know. And that's and Washington too. Like, I expected regression from Washington, but I mean, for them to be this low right now, 9-8, like I did not expect that, I'll be honest.
But they win one game. And they're in a wild card spot again.
Back in the mix.
That's the East right now. I can tell you people in Toronto were panicking when they were tied with the Sabres for last in the conference. And it's like, guys, look at the points that everybody has, right? Buffalo's not as bad as you thought they were. And sadly for Sens fans, the Leafs are not as bad as some might hope they might be. But in terms of like what Ottawa's doing in particular, I've liked what I've seen. Because not everything is going right. And in previous years, that would just sink the team completely. Yeah. Like, they're getting substandard goaltending and they're out of it by American Thanksgiving. They've weathered that storm. They've weathered losing their captain 2 or 3 games into the season. They've weathered a bit of a lousy penalty kill. I believe they're tied for last in the league in penalty killing right now. And they're still getting points, keeping pace in the standings, right? So these are fixable things. Brady's coming back soon. Ullmark's been regressing to the mean and has been better lately. Levi Merilainen has had some good starts lately. And so good teams will put points up in the standings when things aren't going right and maybe they didn't play a perfect game or something like that. So overall, like, I have not been disappointed with their performance. They seem to be doing things the right way, and it might sound a little silly, but like, there's been some bad breaks along the way too, like just weird luck, weird bounces, and we're just getting to the point of the season where you can, is it bad luck or is it a trend or a pattern? And for now, I think we can safely say that some of those were simply like bad luck, like, maybe Ullmark should have had that one, or weird bounce, and now you've lost in overtime. But that's the other thing. When they're under real 500, they're 9-10, but because of the overtime points that they're putting up at a better pace than virtually everyone in the East, they're doing pretty good with that. Now, with that said, there's 2 trains of thought with the overtime thing, right? If you're going to overtime a lot, that means you're not out of a lot of games. But at the same time, right, you're not winning those games. So you can construct any narrative you want when it comes to overtime points, whether we're being competitive every night or they're losing more games than the standings show that they're losing, right?
Well, I wouldn't worry too much about it. We just had Ryan O'Hara on here a couple of weeks ago, who also writes for the Hockey News for Colorado. Colorado, I think, has the most overtime losses this season, which is crazy because they're one of the best teams in the league. Let me actually just back that up here.
One regulation loss?
5 overtime losses this year. Just one regulation loss. It's pretty crazy. Actually, no, Golden Knights have more overtime losses now. Wow, I didn't realize they had that many. But Yeah, so it's just one of those. It just goes to show that, like, it's something to keep an eye on for sure. But I don't know if it's like, again, we're just talking about like things that maybe could be improved a little bit more. I'm looking at the road record, though. Is there any concerns there? Just 500 on that. Well, below 500 if you count the overtime losses. Is that like a thing in Ottawa right now? Is that something you guys are looking at?
We're about to find out. They are starting a 7-game road trip tomorrow night, which starts in California, which has historically been just a graveyard for Sens hopes and dreams heading out to those California road trips. So I'll have a better answer for you in 7 days or so, or not 7 days, but 7 games from now, when they. Sorry, my new cat is eager.
Oh, awesome! I don't know. When'd you get the cat?
September. They're 4 months
cool.
old. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's awesome. I'm a cat guy, so that's cool.
They crawl all over the computer desk.
No, I love it. I love it.
Sorry, train of thought. So yeah, road record. No, I'm not too concerned about it at the moment, but we're going to know a whole lot more in about 2 weeks. One thing I've liked about their road games is the road games that I've managed to catch they're playing that boring, like, let's not give the fans any entertainment value for their dollar style of road game, which is what you want as a fan, maybe not as a paying customer, but that sort of like clogging the defensive zone sort of play. Like, we're not going to abandon our defensive position in order to cheat for some offense, which can be a lot more entertaining to watch, but it means points in the standings, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, as far as like positive so far this season, what's been really encouraging for you from the Sens in terms of, overall performances, or maybe like things that have surprised you on the lineup? Like, what have been, from what you've sort of gathered so far this season, what are some things that you're like, man, that's been like a good story so far?
Stützle's shooting more. He's on pace for, I believe, 46 goals this year, which would be a huge improvement on his 20-ish the last 2 seasons. And that was what was talked about a whole lot at the end of the season from Tim himself, right? Was like, I need to shoot more. Been passing up shots to make that perfect pass. So that's been encouraging. A lot of pluses in the forward ledger, which even in their successful season last year was not the case. Dylan Cousins notwithstanding, I believe he's a -10. So he's a bit of a power play merchant. But Batherson's a plus player. He's well over a point per game. Claude Giroux is hovering near that, like, not quite point per game, but I think around the 0.8 points per game mark, which at his age is wonderful. Another really nice surprise from the team has been their face-off prowess. They are far and away the best face-off team in the league.
Yeah.
Stützle himself is well over 60%, which in recent years he was struggling to crack 40%. Claude Giroux is number 1 in the league in faceoffs at 69%. So that's been one really nice surprise, is you're starting with possession on 60% ish of faceoffs, and you're going to generate offense the right way in that regard. In terms of negative surprises, a lot of Sens fans are pulling the chute on Zetterlund right now. I believe he's got a grand total of 8 points since last year's trade deadline. They just signed him to a above $4 million a year deal. Mm-hmm. So currently he's not delivering on that contract in terms of an offensive game. Now he does a lot of those really good things that you expect your middle six, bottom six forwards to do. He's tough on pucks, tough on the boards, pressures the defense, gets in front of the slot, gets in the goalie's face. But man, you'd think he'd generate at least like a couple of secondary assists or a deflection here and there. And the guy is just like machine gun covered in snake bites at this time. Another pleasant surprise has been Michael Amadio. I believe he's on a 7-game point streak right now. 5 goals in 6 games. So that's been a nice little surprise, especially when you're not getting quite the contributions you expect from Zetterlund. Greg has less points than you might have expected. Perron's delivering what you expect from a forward of that age. And Pinto has been lights out most of the season, hovering around point per game. And if you had asked me last year that, they're going to sign Pinto to a $7.5 million year contract, I would have said, oh my God, they really overpaid to keep him in town. looks reasonable, if not a bargain now, right? Like the guy was leading the league in goals towards the end of October, tapered off a little bit on the goals, but still hovering near that point per game. Face-off demon, plays in all situations, that kind of prototypical middle six forward you want.
Is there anything kind of looking at the team now that you think there's like a need that they need? Obviously, we're early in the season, but one of the things I've been talking about with a lot of people on this show is that we're going to get to this point where, and maybe we won't, because they usually use American Thanksgiving as sort of the benchmark of like, okay, well, if you're not in a playoff position, we got to change course. But I think this year was so much parity. You look at the standings, you mentioned it there. There's just like, it's just been a weird season. Like you're seeing a lot of teams like we mentioned in the East with Florida, Washington. Like, are these playoff teams? I don't know. Tampa Bay, Edmonton in the West has been not great either down there with some other teams. Like, I do wonder if we're going to start to see teams, whether that's the American Thanksgiving or shortly after that, there's got to be some teams who have to change course. Like I look at a team like Nashville that essentially just ran back the same roster, and you're getting similar results here. So I do you got to imagine that there's got to be some, like at least entertaining offers on a Steven Stamkos or a Marchessault, whether that's retained salary. I mean, I think you'll have to be retained salary with Stamkos, but like I wonder if we're going to see that type of movement, and I wonder if a team like the Senators, I know you guys don't have much cap space, but you guys do have picks, so I do wonder if that's for a Nashville or someone that probably should be rebuilding, if that's a little bit more appealing. What do you make of that? That I think we are going to see some movement here as certain teams separate from the pack.
With the Sens, actually, I think the draft capital is more valuable to them than the cap space right now. Okay. Remember, they don't have their first round pick as of right now.
This year, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Because of the Dadonov trade disaster. And their prospect cupboard.
So stupid, by the way, that whole thing. But yeah,
if I were to predict, I think they're going to be like, here you go. Here's the last pick in the first round, which, by the way, Ottawa has Buffalo's second round pick from the Cousins-Norris deal. Buffalo threw
which has been a big win for Ottawa. I think Norris is injured right now for Buffalo. Is he not?
Yes. I believe I saw somewhere that Dylan Cousins has as many points as Josh Norris has minutes of time on ice this season.
Yeah, probably.
It's close, even if that's the case. So I really don't want to see Ottawa giving up draft capital for rentals with this much parity going on right now. Is this a year you want to ditch another first round pick?
Right.
Ottawa's made one first round pick in the last 4 seasons. They gave it up in the DeBrincat deal, the Chikrin deal, and now to the league disciplinary office. You got to make some firsts. That's not entirely true. They acquired a first round pick as well, but in the later round. They have more cap space than you might think. They're hovering around $4 million in cap space. That can get you a Marchessault at 50% retained without
breaking the bank.
Yeah. And if you want to take some B-level prospects from Belleville, this roster does seem really close, right? Yeah. And I would be personally reluctant to mess with that team culture in a season like this where there's no sure thing.
I agree.
It's if you're Colorado, go all in, right? Like you've got one regulation loss in 20 games. That's a hamburger run right there. Go all in. But in the East, I don't think anyone's a buyer or a seller yet, right?
Well, I think it's going to take longer. Like I would have said American Thanksgiving's the time when you start to see, things move out. Saying that though, I just think your teams that I don't think, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think Calgary's turning it around. I don't think Nashville's turning it around. I don't think St. Louis is turning it around. I hate to say this. I don't think Canucks are turning it around, especially with their injuries and this whole Quinn Hughes thing, which we can talk about a little bit later because there's been a wrinkle added into that. And in the East, the East is a little bit more of a question. I do imagine Florida's getting to Chuck back here pretty soon, I think. I know they don't have Barkov for the whole season, but they might be able to get back in. Although Bobrovsky did not play well the other night. I saw that firsthand. The Canucks played them.
You've been to 3 finals in the row, and the body can only take so much. Banners fly forever. No one's going to remember if they missed the playoffs this year.
Right. And it's happened before. I think the Kings, when they went, I think it was 2014, they missed the playoffs after going to the final. I think it was the year or two previous. So it does happen. But
they were 1 point up, and they won the cup as the 8th seed in the West. So you can only take so much. These things go in ebbs and flows, and Florida's certainly had their share of success in the last 4 seasons. So I wouldn't be surprised if Florida stays out this year. But
yeah. No, it's. I think you could be right. Yeah, just too much damage there. I mean, listen, bias aside, like, do the Leafs miss the playoffs? Like, it just seems weird that would happen this year and have such a big drop off. And listen, I know you can talk about the Marner thing or whatever, but I don't know. It just seems like they've been really snake bit. I don't know how many injuries they had. I saw Nyes is out now, Matthews. I mean, it might be one of those things where the injuries are too much. That's what's happening in Vancouver right now. Like, I mean, they were a borderline playoff team before all this, but right out of the gate, they had what? Niels Höglander, Lekkerimäki, Teddy Bluger is one of their great penalty killers. Canucks penalty kills, one of the worst in the league. So like, I do think like right now in this season, a lot of this is injury related. And also like I think kind of what I'm getting at is like, my question is like, which of these teams do you think is, maybe not reflective of where they're going to end up at the end of the year? That's the hard part. Like I said, like I think Calgary, Nashville, St. Louis, and probably Vancouver are going to stay where they are. And in the East, I think you got Buffalo, maybe Florida. We'll add that in there. And I don't think the Rangers are going to make it either. They look like a disaster. I think them making JT Miller was a big mistake because he doesn't play defense. And this is something that frustrated a lot of Canucks fans when he was here. As great as he of elite, as great of like a, rough and tough guy and like, pull you by your bootstraps type guy he is. He doesn't play defense, and that's not good for a captain. So,
yeah. So the way I kind of deduct all this, right, is when things are this close, right? Like this margin of error, all of a sudden team culture becomes one of your most important things, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Players who want to play for each other, who feel comfortable in their surroundings, who understand the assignment, whether it's what are the team's goals or what the coach is specifically assigning them to do. And I think you can see it on teams like Toronto that have been through the ringer. I'd hate to use the term something like loser culture because I don't think that's the case, right? Like, but the Toronto market and the media does hold these players to a very high standard that they've given snippets of in the regular season and then can't deliver on that promise in the playoffs. And after years and years of like the media, like just putting a microphone in your face and saying like, so why'd you suck tonight? Effectively paraphrasing, right? But that's basically what's happening. And I think you see a similar thing in Vancouver, right? Where you have intense media scrutiny. You're kind of the only game in town for a major metropolitan center. I know obviously the Leafs have the Jays and the Raptors, but they don't really compete with those teams. And then Vancouver Canucks are the only game in town. Bring back the Grizzlies, by the way.
I agree.
That sort of thing. So the same thing you're seeing in New York, right? So the difference is not necessarily like, look, they've got probably the best goalie in the world. They've got 2 full lines of insanely good offensive talent. They've got some good pieces on defense. Becomes a culture thing, right? Like JT Miller has now kind of been the cultural scapegoat, for lack of a better word, on 3 teams. Like Tampa, like I can't really speak to the Tampa stuff. I didn't follow it that closely. But
Tampa was more of a cap crunch thing. Like they knew they were going to have to re-sign him. That's how the Vancouver was able to get him, because essentially like they had to pay all these other guys, and Miller didn't really fit in those plans. So it was like Canucks saw like an opportunity to not buy low. They ended up giving a first round pick for him, but it was a situation where like Miller wasn't going to be there long term because they just didn't have enough room for him on the cap. So.
Fair enough. But I mean, this is also a guy who alienated like Vancouver's highest paid superstar. And
well, that's more, that was like a personality clash. But yeah, no, like I agree with you. Listen, like I'm like there's a lot of people that were like, man, the Canucks, they really blew it with Miller. Like I don't think anyone won that Miller trade. Like to be honest, like I don't think you look at New York's record this year, they're not doing that great. The Canucks have obviously not done well, but I mean, I'm of the belief, and this is maybe not a popular one amongst people here in Vancouver, but I think if they had kept Miller, it would have ended up just the same way. Like I think Miller was always like, he doesn't play defense. There's going to be issues with that. Let's be honest, that season 2 years ago was a fluke. Their PDO was one of the highest in the league, one of the highest in NHL history. It was not sustainable what they were able to do. And you had, Demko healthy and like all these things that were just like working in their favor. They didn't have any injuries. And then what happened last year, the opposite happened. And then you got this whole situation where two superstars aren't getting along. So I think it's just one of those things where this team is not constructed well. And I think with the Rangers, yes, they have a lot of offensive upside. They also have a lot of players over 30. And that's not something that in a cap era that you can rely on too much, because with those players comes a big price tag. And could that money be allocated a little bit better? That's kind of how I look at it.
I agree. To that point about sustainability and also my previous point about culture and vibes, look at the top of the standings, right? Like, did anyone expect Boston to be there?
No.
Right?
And I think that's credit to the coach.
Immaculate team culture going on over there right now, right?
Yeah.
Like a bunch of like misfit toy players who were told, oh, you're not good enough. You're going to be at the bottom of the standings and like hold my beer, right? Same thing with Montreal. Immaculate vibes right now with their playoff. Well, they didn't have playoff success, but the playoffs.
They made the playoffs last year, which was unexpected. Yeah.
Years ahead of time. And these are young guys who came up together and are playing for one another. And it's reflective in the standings. Although Montreal, I think, is a bit of a mirage. They do only have 5 regulation wins. So back to that overtime point, right? Are they in every game, or are they getting a little lucky with, winning the 3-on-3 coin toss several times, right?
Well, Cole Caulfield, I mean, he's just lights out in OT, right?
Suzuki
like, so
too.
And, Suzuki, yeah. And to be fair, I mean, Sam Montembeau's not playing well, and I can tell you that because I've got him in 2 of my hockey pools, and he's been brutal. So if that gets going, then maybe that changes their fortunes. The thing with Montreal, though, is they just have so much draft capital. They have so many young players. Like, it's a good situation to be in. And there's a lot of teams like that. And that's actually going to get to another point I wanted to make. Like, how interesting do you find it this year that you're seeing Anaheim and Chicago and San Jose? I know is low in the standings, but they're still winning games sometimes that they're not supposed to be winning, right? Like, they continue to get it done. I feel like we're seeing a changing of the guard right now, where these teams that did sort of do the proper rebuild are now seeing the fruits of their labor.
Absolutely. But I mean, all of these are goaltending is voodoo, right? Like,
that's a great
Colorado.
Point.
He was Mackenzie Blackwood had one foot out of the league 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Now he's statistically one of the best goalies in the league, right? Seattle, Joey Decord has been absolutely lights out, right? Darcy Kemper rolled back the clock 5 years in LA, right? And then all of a sudden, Ottawa's got an $8 million Vezina winner from 2 years ago, and Ullmark is statistically a bottom 3 goalie in the league right now, right? Thatcher Demko in Vancouver is another one, which I know he's dealing with injury stuff, but again, goaltending, right? Like, it's goaltending isn't everything unless you don't have any. And
well, look at Edmonton right now. I mean, let's go. I want to see what their goal differential is actually back. Look, they're -12, which is crazy.
That's nuts. with McDavid and
Draisaitl. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So,
but I think you'll see Edmonton's going to have to acquire a goalie before the playoffs, right? And
I mean, we thought that last year, and they never did. Like, I don't know why they didn't. Like, I would love to know the behind the scenes of this. Why didn't they get John Gibson? That to me was an obvious one. Like, he was going to leave Anaheim. They obviously had Dosal as their guy and their starter. You give up the farm to get Gibson, and I don't even think Gibson went for that much to Detroit, if I remember correctly. Let me go find that trade. But like, I think right now, if you're Edmonton, I think the guy you look at, and I know he doesn't have amazing numbers right now, I think is UC Saros. Look at Nashville; they should be selling. If you're Nashville, like, I don't know how you look at that fan base, and maybe it's I think it's a bad case of a fan. Like, I don't know. I need to talk to someone from Nashville and get a pulse on it, but I feel like, just on the outside looking in, I see a franchise that is being too loyal to their guy in Barry Trotz, who's not a good GM. Like, he's just not right now. And he won't fire his buddy Andrew Burnett, who, of course, played for him back in the day. Like, it's like they're being too loyal, and their team is suffering as a result. Like, nobody thought they would be this bad last year. And then, they basically came back with the same roster. And it's like, what do you think's going to happen? Especially when teams like Utah and Anaheim are getting better every year, and you're expecting to just sort of go there. So, yeah, I think Saros could be a good chip for Edmonton. Edmonton, I don't think has a lot of cap space or a lot going on, but like, try and figure out something where you can get someone that's different than, it's not even just that Saros, I think, is going to be like amazing for them. It's just an upgrade over what they currently, like, you keep running back Pickard and Skinner, you're going to run McDavid out in 2 years. There's no question about it if they keep doing this.
I agree. And also like that goes to a more interesting, not more interesting, another interesting point. My apologies. That a lot of these teams hire these GMs who have been very successful in other avenues in hockey, and it's a total crapshoot, right? Like, look at what Chris Drury's doing in New York, right? Okay, stellar player, cup winner, one of the best forwards of the 2000s. If you're looking at overall game, what's he done, right? Barry Trotz over in Nashville, one of the most successful coaches of a generation. that doesn't mean he can negotiate contracts and build a roster. That sort of thing. Meanwhile, in Ottawa, right, you hired a former stay-at-home defenseman who I think is one of the most steady GMs in the league, who, when he makes a move, you see how the pieces kind of fit with everything else. In Edmonton, like, sometimes you're just like, wow, you guys are just really coasting on like the truly elite talent that you have at the top of your roster. But what are you doing building around them? I know Ken Holland's not the GM there anymore. It's please remind me who the GM in Edmonton is.
Oh, it's Stan Bowman.
Yep, there you go. Right. But again, so previous success in the GM chair doesn't necessarily portend future success, or vice versa, right? Like, what works in one market's not going to work in another.
Yeah, so these are some teams to definitely keep an eye on. By the way, I was listening to Sportsnet 650 this morning. David Amber has Ottawa winning the Atlantic Division, so I thought that was kind of neat. I thought I'd mention that little tidbit. So there are believers. I think the thing with Ottawa and like a lot of these teams, like I put Ottawa and kind of Utah and these like younger teams in the same category. I'd almost argue that Ottawa's got a bit more upside because you have some of those really good veterans mixed in there, like Giroux and Perron and all that. But I think, you know, if I'm going to bet on a team going on a run or having success, it's a team like Ottawa that's still relatively young. You're getting players. We talked about this when we had John last time. Like, the thing with Ottawa that's great is they have these like really good pieces, and every year they're going to get better. And there's not like a sense of, oh, we got to trade for something or we got to improve. Like, your improvement is just within. You don't have to worry about going and acquiring other players to sort of level up here. So I think Ottawa's going to make the playoffs. I think they can get to the second round. I think they'll do better than last year. And I think that, again, if the goaltending gets figured out, the road record, all that stuff, I think the pieces are there. And like you mentioned, you got $5 million in cap space. That'll be a weapon at the deadline, as you hope certain teams look to sell a little bit. So we'll see. Again,
they've done it without their captain for virtually the entire season.
Yeah, that's true.
They're about to get a Brady Tkachuk in for free. That's a major acquisition if you want to look at it that way. So yes, I'm bullish on Ottawa's chances. And Ullmark he has to just regress to the mean, right? Like, he's been rocking something like an 850 save percentage for the first month of the season. And he just can't be that bad the entire season. Like, it's statistically unsustainable, right? Like, you're talking about the Vancouver Canucks PDO. Like, you cannot expect a Vezina winner from 2 years ago to have an 850 the whole season. And even if they don't, the Marilainen has shown that he can come in there and be a steadying presence in the crease as well. So those are the two biggest concerns, is right, just get your injuries back. Now Thomas Chabot's out. You asked me earlier, like, what does Ottawa need to acquire? Spent all this time and effort making one of the probably top to bottom strongest right sides in the league. Yeah. They have Zub, Spence, Matenpalo, and Jensen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Jordan.
And no Spence, Travis Hamonic, thankfully.
Jordan, yeah. Oh man, and then Detroit grabs them, and now they're first in the division.
Yeah,
but look at it this way: Jordan Spence is playing as a full season pace, 70-point pace, and he's not in the lineup every night. So like, they've got some nice depth, you can adjust your roster based on who your opponent is. You can go a little bigger, you can go a little more slick puck moving with that side. But now that Chabot's out, that left side's looking pretty thin, and they lost their ideal number 7 left side shot to Florida on waivers. Right. Local boy, Donovan Sabrango. He's from Ottawa. He was thrilled to be playing for Ottawa. I think he's probably a little more thrilled to play for Florida now. But yeah, they since they lost him, most of what they have in Belleville are 20, 21-year-olds who are just not ready for the show yet. They did pick up Dennis Gilbert in a trade with Philly recently, who they originally acquired in the Cousins Norris trade. They let him go as a free agent, and now they traded a B-level prospect in Max Gannett for him. So they've addressed that a little bit, but all of a sudden, as soon as you like get one position kind of all sorted out, needs pop up in other ways. But the biggest thing is in terms of like the roster construction and what they need, I can tell you what they don't need is centers. Their top 3 centers are all signed for at least the next 5 years.
Yeah, and that's a huge luxury. Look at all the teams that are looking for second line centers. It's like the list is like it's like more than half the league. It's crazy.
And Ottawa has 2 second line centers and a true first line center. That alone will paper over other issues elsewhere in the roster. Like, who is the second line center? Is it Shane Pinto or is it Dylan Cousins? They both make over $7 million a year, right? They're both putting up offensive production, and they both have chemistry with loads of different players and lines. And I think by default, you almost say Dylan Cousins is the third line center, just based on he's a -10, right? So, okay, well, he's the one who's not playing the best defensively compared to the other two, right? So, but if Dylan Cousins is your third line center, you're doing something right? Lars Eller has been a wonderful addition to the team too. Stellar penalty killer, another guy who can win tons of faceoffs, tough to beat on the boards. The guy's never going to put up like the numbers he put up earlier in his career. Cup winning pedigree there too. So he's been a nice addition at what they're paying him, especially.
Yeah, and it's a good balance. Like I mentioned here, you got some nice veterans, you got some players coming into their own. It's awesome. Let's get to a couple questions here. Sorry to keep you guys waiting. Billy, hey, what's up? Blues lose another one in the OT. They can't win in overtime to save their lives. I think the Blues, like the Canucks, are going to be basically forced to rebuild, I think, just because like it's, they signed Buchnevich to that big contract, and they've got some assets that could fetch some good returns. They've got Braden Shen, they've got Kyrou. There's the big thing with St. Louis, and I just looked at this before you answered this question. Look who's in the very bottom for goaltending. It is St. Louis. So they're not getting any help there. I mean, I even think like if they were to somehow acquire another goalie, I mean, I don't think they'll ever get rid of Binnington. He just seems like a lifer for them. Maybe you get someone to kind of share the crease with them a little bit, but I think even if they did that, I think the season's gone. They're not going to get 2019 all over again, or whatever year that was. They won the cup and they went on that crazy run. I don't think that's happening again.
That OT loss was to the Leafs, and this is what happens when a very stoppable force meets a very movable object.
Right.
Leafs had lost, I think, 5 in a row going into that game, and so like somebody's got to win that game, and of course it went to overtime, right? But yeah, I think with the Blues, it's been mostly just. Like the biggest part has been just horrendous goaltending, right? They are just bleeding goals all over the place. But it's probably time for them to rebuild. I mean, when it comes to the Blues, a lot of rumors.
They got some good
Pirate Ottawa too. So, but
they got good pieces though. Look, they got Dylan Holloway, Thomas, Snugard. They're obviously going to keep. He's sort of a prospect for them. Pius Suter's been good for them. That's someone I wish. I mean, now talk about a bad move for the Canucks. Like I would way rather have Pius Suter right now than Evander Kane, who's been really not much of an impact at all with the team.
Former Senator Mathieu Joseph.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, there's some good pieces here, right? Yeah. Broberg. So I think like if they want to do it, I know a lot of teams don't want to do rebuilds. Calgary's going through the same thing right now. They're not like fully committing to a rebuild, even though like right now, if I'm Calgary fans, and we had Peter Klein on here last week. Go for McKenna. Why not? Like that, how great would it be if McKenna was in a Canadian market? That would be awesome.
Absolutely.
Imagine McDavid in Edmonton, and then you got McKenna in Calgary. That would be awesome. I just don't want to see McKenna. I mean, I don't know. I'll say this out loud. I don't mind. I know this is an American company that I'm doing this for, but I don't want to see him go to Nashville or some of these other teams. I want to see a Canadian guy go to a Canadian market. Like you got Celebrini and Bedard lighting it up for 2 American franchises. It would be nice to see Canada get a big, regardless of what the team is, get a big name there. But
ask any Leafs fan, would you take last place or near last place this season and get McKenna, have him play with Matthews? All of a sudden, a season of pain becomes real worth it if you're a Leafs fan. Right? Like, I mean,
and there's a good draft this year, regardless. So it's supposed to be one of the stronger drafts. That's something to keep in mind. What's the buzz in Ottawa about Owen Beckner? He's been really good at Colorado College, 7th round pick over the per game in NCAA, no small feat. So John, who's a good friend of mine, he follows all the college hockey, so he's aware of this. Have you heard much about this Owen Beckner guy?
Not a ton, to be honest. But I can tell you that Ottawa's had some great success with NCAA prospects in recent years. Jake Sanderson, Shane Pinto, even Jacob Bernard Docker, who didn't quite live up to first round pedigree. They all came out of that North DAC situation. Now they've kind of focused more of their energies on Wisconsin. So they have Blake Montgomery, who just won a Memorial Cup with the London Knights, who sends property playing out of Wisconsin, and their first round pick from last year, Logan Hensler, is also playing in Wisconsin, NCAA. He had a killer highlight the other night, just dancing through the entire team, and those Eric Carlson type or Quinn Hughes type highlights are just, I'm just going to go through everybody and just like score a sick goal. But in terms of Owen Beckner, I've heard the name a little bit. I know he's a point per game at NCAA, which is what you want to see when you spend a 7th round pick on a prospect. He's currently unsigned for the big team, but if he keeps up those numbers, I don't see why Ottawa wouldn't start looking to bring him to Belleville next season if he's eligible. Right. Because I'm not as familiar with the player. I don't know if he has to do one more season in NCAA or not before he can go pro. I'll tell you, if I was an NCAA player and I'd done like 2-3 years, like just do the one more year, have the degree as a fallback.
Exactly.
If your knee blows up. But I always play it safe like that. So it can be hard to turn down like $800,000 a year big league contract, especially at that age, right? So
yeah, it's a good point. I don't know if you know the answer to this, and I think I imagine it would have changed when Staios came in. But who is like your draft guy? Like for the U.S. prospects, I know for the Canucks, he just recently got promoted. But Scott Young, remember, he used to play for St. Louis. He was like the guy that found like they got Max Sassone from the NCAA. He was like an undrafted free agent. Like there's every organization has like scouts and stuff that are like good at finding those like hidden gems that get lost in the shuffle. Do you know who it is for Ottawa?
I know there's been a lot of turnover since Dorion got fired, and I will go to bat for Dorion's drafting all the time. Like he made a lot of mistakes in terms of running an actual organization, but the drafting
was solid. Yeah, I know.
Rock solid. Like every team has some busts. Now it's Don Boyd, and I believe he turned over most of the staff. I know Mikko Ruutu still does Europe for the Sens. Throwback name for you right there.
Yes. No relation to Jarkko or
he is his brother.
Oh, is it? Oh, is he? Okay, so there's because there's the two brothers. There was Jarkko, and then there was the other. Jarkko was the one who played for the Canucks
and Ottawa.
And Ottawa, that's right. And then what was the good one? Timo Ruutu, was that the one who played for Chicago?
Tuomo Ruutu was the
one. Ruutu, yeah, who played I think Carolina too. I think.
Yeah, and then Mikko had a couple of cups of coffee in the league, but he's been a stellar European scout. Like,
okay, well, yeah, I mean those are important. Like again, the scouting staff and all that.
In terms of American, like specifically like scouting, like American in college, I don't know exactly.
No worries, wouldn't expect you to know.
Pretty good so far. Like Yakimchuk's looking like a player, and I really like how Ottawa's bringing him along too. They needed some backup, and they left him down in the minors, and they brought up somebody who's kind of more like, okay, we know who this guy is. Let Yakimchuk run with the ball in Belleville, play in all situations, be ready for next season,
So something I wanted to touch on, I know I got you on here to talk Ottawa, but this was a bit of news yesterday in Vancouver land, and I wanted to mention that. So this article from Gary Mason came out. So Gary Mason's been like a longtime columnist in the Vancouver market. He's tight with the Aquilinis, the ownership group. And the big thing right now...
Gary then.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. He's like the Gary, but he's like, but he like Mason like hardly writes now. Like he's almost like semi-retired, but every now and then he'll write an article, and so he's got this one article coming out to rebuild or not rebuild. Now in Vancouver for a long time, other than maybe that one season where they went on the big run, fans here have wanted to rebuild because they haven't done one. Like they haven't really done a proper one. Like even if you go back to when they got the Sedins, it was kind of like. They didn't really tear the whole thing down. They just happened to get lucky with getting the Sedins and making that trade with Brian McCabe going to Chicago and all that stuff. So that's how they were, or not Chicago. I forget what trade they made, but it was Brian McCabe to Chicago. Anyways, doesn't matter. They haven't really done like a true rebuild. And someone went through like all the statistics. Like if you look at all the teams that have won the cup recently, they've all had like a top 3 pick. Like there's just like a lot of evidence to that. I think St. Louis is like one of the exceptions, but anyways, long story short, like fans here, like we're done. We keep doing this mushy middle thing where like you keep, making this team and, sometimes they make the playoffs, sometimes they don't. More often than not, they don't. So that's why fans now, especially with this Quinn Hughes thing. So this gets to the rebuild or not to rebuild thing from Gary Mason. And again, Gary is tight with the owner. So if he's writing something, he's keeping in mind that he talks to the owner a lot. So this is the key quote here, and Jason Bruff, who's our host here, it says, "It appears at some point this is shaping to be another lost season. Then management is going to need to know what the prospects of keeping Hughes are. If they are not great, then the sooner they deal him, the better. Perhaps they can get on with the rebuild for which once their fan base appears so eager." And something I forgot about, and shout out to this guy who's actually kind of negative with the Vancouver market. He says Hughes has no trade protection. You can get a huge package from a contender if they get him for 2 playoff runs, even if he doesn't sign an extension. Would also get the Devils to offer more than waiting until the summer. Week between Olympics and trade deadline is one to watch. I totally agree. Hughes is gone. Like, you can just see it on his face. This year was like, you know what? We'll see how it goes. Like, I was a bit more optimistic than a lot of Canucks fans this year. I thought, you know what? They had the Miller thing. They had the injuries. Like, it can't be that bad. Well, it turns out it can be bad because you can still have similar injuries. And you know, let's be honest, like Pettersson, he is sort of getting back to where we saw him the other night. He had a nice backhanded goal against, he had the backhanded goal, I think it was the other night in Florida. He's getting back there, but he's not like a game changer player. So with all that said, I'm okay with trading Hughes because this whole thing isn't working, and I want to see Hughes have success. I think he deserves it. Do I think he's handling this well as a captain? I don't. There was that scrum he did a couple weeks ago where he just looked like completely miserable, and I'm like, dude, part of being a captain is you have to take, like, you got to deal with the media. Like, you have to, like, the wins and the losses, you got to take it all in. And you know, I just think he's kind of checked out, and it doesn't help when you got your president coming out and saying he wants to play with his brothers. Like, no shit he does, but you don't have to say it publicly. Yeah. So with my long-winded answer here is, I think it's time to. I think if you do trade Hughes, that does accelerate a rebuild, and I think you could get a big haul for it. My question is, what are your suitors? Like, who have? Like, to me, it's New Jersey's got some capital they could trade. Carolina. Like, and then obviously New Jersey's the big one because his brothers are there. But what do you make of this whole situation as an outsider from Toronto? Well, living in Toronto, but from Ottawa.
Well, so I mean, we went through this in Ottawa.
Erik Karlsson. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
And no matter what, if you trade Hughes, the immediate reaction is, "Oh my God, the Canucks got fleeced."
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they will. I mean, you can't replace Hughes. Like it would be the equivalent of like trading Kaprizov for Minnesota. Like I get that, but I also think like, listen, this whole thing isn't working anyways. You got to do something big to change it around. And if you're not doing a full rebuild, trading Hughes is up there. Sorry to interrupt, but I just
No. If I had Aquilini's ear on this situation in particular, I would be like, you own an NHL team in a rabid Canadian market. If you're not making the playoffs anyway, then all you need to do in Vancouver is convince 18,000 people to spend your ticket prices, and then your revenue doesn't change after that, right? Like, you have your guaranteed TV contract, you've got your gate revenue, and I can tell you right now, if Vancouver was like a 40-point pace, dead last in the league, they would still be 95 to 100% capacity in the building. So why not reduce your expenditures on these players who are not taking you where you want to go? And just do it. Now, tearing it down is the easy part, right? It's how do you build it back up? And
how do you not be Buffalo, right? Like,
how do you not be Buffalo? Or like, and Ottawa got kind of lucky that San Jose cratered the year after, and they got Stützle from that pick that they got in the Karlsson trade. And they got, Norris, and they got another pick that became like, they got quite a few like roster players and things like that. And Karlsson still had the full year of so like, they traded him at the right time, they got the right pieces, and look at where they are now. Like, Ottawa is a good litmus test for how well is a rebuild going, because they are a smaller market. They're one of the most forgotten markets in the league. The metro population of Ottawa is 1 million people, and I think you could generously say that 40% of fans in Ottawa are Montreal and Toronto fans who don't care about the Sens. Like, can you think of another market in the NHL where like only 60% of the people who live in your city who like your sport actually like the home team? Like, so it's a weird situation. But if you're rebuilding, like, look at the vibes in Ottawa during the playoffs last year. Like, they cheered 18,000.
Well, yeah, I mean, people know. Yeah, well, I mean, we got a taste of it 2 years ago. I mean, it was unreal. I was at Game 1 of Edmonton and Vancouver. Like, loudest fans in the league. Players still talk about it to this day on the Canucks, despite how bad things have been. That's like the one glimmer of hope, is that you see what it's like, because there was such an appetite for them to get back to the playoffs. But it's got to be more than that. It can't just be once every 10 years, which is what it's basically been, right? So,
but Vancouver doesn't have a problem with their building getting taken over by Edmonton and Calgary fans.
No, they don't. No. Oh, well, actually, I was at a Montreal game last year, and unfortunately, there was probably more people cheering for Montreal, but whatever. I mean, that doesn't happen often. Yeah.
But you also don't meet in the first round of the playoffs. And so Ottawa did this rebuild, and they play the Leafs in their first matchup ever since they came out of this quagmire of an abyss that the Sens were in for this amount of time. And Sens fans kept Leaf fans out and took their building back. And those vibes just become so immaculate. And then you've created a team where people want to come and play in Ottawa, right? Especially players who have like kids, right? They want to raise their kids in like a safe Canadian environment, maybe similar to what they grew up with and stuff like that. The stuff you're not going to find in New York or Boston, or, you know, that quieter professional athlete life. All of that is to say that you bite the bullet, but in the end you save money with a rebuild anyway, because you're going to be near the salary cap floor. So you're not going to make the playoffs anyway. So just do it, but make sure that you hire quality individuals. And if you're going to stick with, it's Rutherford in Vancouver. Now,
Rutherford, right? And Alvin. Yeah. Patrick Alvin's the GM. Rutherford's the president. Now, and Rutherford won't be here much longer, I don't think, because he's old, right? He's like in his
exactly. If you're going to go with the old head, you need, I loathe to throw this name out because I don't think he's the wonder kid he was sold as, but like a Kyle Dubas, young mentality type to go with that old school mentality to like, it's like, hey, Jimmy boy, like, don't go get Milan Lucic just because he was like a top power forward 10 years ago. And you think that's the kind of player you need. I'm just throwing that.
No, but like, you don't want Ken Holland. Like, look at, I know the Kings are doing okay, but like, you know, a lot of people are like, why did you sign Dillman and Cody Ceci to those huge contracts? That's going to blow up
in their faces. So bad,
exactly. Right? When you could have paid, what's the guy they traded in New York? The Gagger, the guy they let in free agency. Yeah. You could have just signed him to more money, and he's younger and has more upside.
They traded Spence to Ottawa for a third and a fourth.
Yeah, that too. So, okay. So with all that said, so a couple things you said there. Like, I don't think it's hard to sell players on the city because, like, you look at Garland, like these are Americans, Besser, Garland, even Demko, like they were all like, we're going to stay. Demko's only a couple of years, but Garland, Besser, they're like here long term. I don't know if you necessarily need to trade those guys. What I would like, and I think a lot of Canucks fans would agree with this, is I would like to go in the direction of let's utilize our assets. Trade Hughes, trade Kiefer Sherwood. I love Sherwood. It would be cool to see Sherwood finish his career here. He's become a fan favorite. One of the best moves of the Alvin era that they've made. They got him for like nothing. He's on like one of the cheapest contracts in the league right now, and he leads the league in hits. He can score now, but let's be honest, he's punching above his weight right now in terms of what he's able to do. Let me find the actual salary here. Like, they're getting him here, and he's, you know, up there. He's $1.5 million a season, and he's third in points on the team. Like, that's a great value. But you trade him. You don't re-sign him. You trade him and get as much value as you can for him.
Why can't you get what when Tampa traded for Tanner Jeannot? Why can't you get what they got for trading?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. Well, you mean Nashville trading Tanner Jeannot, because it was Tampa who gave up the Lion Hall to get him, right?
Yes. Yeah. So when he got traded to Tampa, I believe it was a first, second, and third. Yeah,
it was a terrible trade for Tampa because he only played like a couple seasons and then he's bounced around since then. He was LA last year. This year he's with Boston. He's a useful player, but not worth that. But anyways, getting back to my point is like,
why can't you get that haul for Sherwood?
Well, that's what I mean. So I think you can get that, but that's the thing. Like, this management group at times has been like, we're going to keep like realistically Besser long term. Is that a great move for them? I don't know. He's not a great skater. He can score, but was that the right move? Probably not. The only thing I worry about with this rebuild thing, if they do this, like, I don't know if you need a full teardown, because I don't know. Like I said, like, you know, maybe you trade Pettersson. I don't know. Like that's the question they'll have to figure out. But what I would say, the one thing I do worry about
on any Pettersson trade, you're not going to get.
No, that's what I mean. Like, it's hard to replace those players. That's the part I'm worried about, is that, like, I'm pro rebuild, but what you don't want to have happen is have Like if you looked at the free agent class for next year, like there's like nobody. Like how do you acquire players? Like you can draft as much as you want, but that might take forever if you're continuing to do it this way, as opposed to like there's just no options, right? Like there's all these teams with cap space, but they had nowhere to spend it this past year. I wonder as the cap keeps going up if teams are going to run into the problem. Like Vancouver, for example, they kept Besser. The only reason they kept Besser, let's call it like it is because they were not able to upgrade in that position. I think if they had it their way, they would have moved on from Besser, but they kept him because there wasn't anyone better available, and they're like, okay, we'll keep him and we can get him at a good rate or whatever. And I like Besser. It's not a shade at him. It's just that like long-term 8 years for a guy who can't skate that well, I don't know. Like that's iffy to me. So that's my thoughts on the whole thing. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
With that, if you're going to do the rebuild thing, you need to have a GM in place with a fresh vision. And I don't think,
but sorry to interrupt. Like I think Alvin kind of is that guy. Like I will say the big difference between this management group and Benning is that they've actually hit on a lot of draft picks, like guys that they've signed through the free agency. So I kind of feel like Alvin is that guy. Like Rutherford's going to leave, but I think Alvin will probably stay. They'll probably hire a new president. I know what you're saying, like a Matthew Darsh, for example, like what they're doing in the Islanders. Like he seems to be forward thinking in that regard, right?
You've just seen it a lot of times in the past where you let your current GM do the sell-off, right? Yeah. And then you bring in somebody else to pick up the pieces after that. Like if you want to accelerate the rebuild, you need somebody who has a vision in place, has some long-term security or guarantees from ownership, and then you let them trade those players to get pieces that fit into their vision. Whether it works out or not, at least you have that like kind of consistency. Unless you have a guy like Dorion who just goes big name chasing and like, oh, Alex DeBrincat would be a great fit. Chikrin would be a great fit, even though we already have 3 left shot defensemen. And where's he going to play? And, so that's what you need to make sure you have in place. And say what you will about Aquilini, but I assume he's savvy enough to know that you need good management and consistency in place if you want to get to that.
Well, but that was going to be my point, is that I think that like I feel like Alvin kind of is that guy. He's made some bad trades, like stuff that hasn't worked out, but I feel like the drafting's been very strong. The free agencies or the free agents, like the prospects that they've signed have been very strong. Like Tom Wielander looks like he's going to be, a very long-standing right shot defenseman that they drafted a couple of years back. Jonathan Lekramaki, it looks like he's finding his form. He's got a really good shot. Braden Coots, who they drafted this year, he was on the team like part of the year. It's just the Canucks have been so bad. They're like, go back to junior, learn more, but he looks like a future center for the team. So I'm not really worried about what they're doing now. If it was Benning, I would be worried. His draft record was terrible. Hey, let's take Jake Virtanen over William Nylander. Let's take Vasily Podkolzin over Cole Caulfield, like that type of stuff. It's just like there was just never a good track record with Benning, but I feel like with this management group, they've actually hit on drafting. And I know what you're saying, that like come in and like fix the mess of like the rebuild, but I feel like Alvin's kind of that guy already. I'm not like, I think his strength is the drafting and all that stuff, right?
Hey, they hit on that Philip Roenick.
That trade too. Yeah, that was a good trade. Now saying that, I would have liked to have kept Bo Horvat, looking what he's doing right now in New York, and traded JT Miller, which I think they tried to do, but then they kind of made they went with Miller instead, which was, and then listen, they made some bad moves. The trading Horvat instead of Miller, I think, was a bad move. Getting Evander Kane instead of paying more to Suter was a bad move. Mikheyev, they brought him in, remember, and they're still paying for him. And they'd offload.
By the way, not to interrupt, but I only found out this week what Bo Horvat's name actually is. Did you know it was Boquarius? His name is Boquarius Horvat. I was like, what? Look it up on Wikipedia.
I will check that out.
So how do you I don't even remember what the return was for Boquarius.
For Horvat. Oh, for Horvat, it was so you got Atu Ratu, who's actually been like a mainstay with them this season. He's slowly coming along. He's not amazing, but he was like a 2nd round pick for the Islanders. Then they got the first, which ended up being traded for Hronek, which worked out. I mean, I think the trade itself was fine. My whole thing is now they're desperately looking for a center. And you know who would have been perfect to get at this time? It would be Bo Horvat. But they can't find one right now because the options are just so bad out there. Like there was talks of them getting Marco Rossi, but like you don't want him. He's too small. You want someone that's like, a little bit bigger that can score, but that's every team right now is looking for that. And unfortunately, if you're looking at teams that are going to get a second line center, Vancouver probably has the least to offer compared to like a Utah or like teams that actually have cap space and a lot of draft capital. So anyways,
and that's why you always hear Brady Tkachuk rumors coming out of Ottawa, right? Because that's the player the kind of player everybody wants. You want a 70, 80 point guy who's a physical menace out there on the ice. And of course, Ottawa's not going to give that up. And you can.
Did you see the episode, by the way, on the Prime series with Brady Tkachuk? It was really well done.
I didn't get around to it, but I
you got to see it, man.
I haven't listened to the podcast yet either.
Yeah, I got to listen to that too. But if you have, I assume you have Amazon Prime. Do you use it or no? Okay, well then you get the service as well. If you go download the app, go watch Inside the NHL. There's an episode specifically on Brady. It's really well done. Like I learned a lot more about him that I didn't know prior to watching it. So
he's a fascinating fella, like in general.
Well, the whole thing was that he was in the shadow of his brother, and they talk about like how important he's been to the Ottawa and all this stuff. And it was really interesting, like that they kind of got to share that moment together, playing in the Four Nations. They kind of tied it all together. It was really well done. So
and he seems to fit into that small community type environment really well too. Like kind of this mix of like, I'm one of the biggest celebrities in the NHL, but I have that small town, hard lunch pail, hard hat, blue collar personality that I think just fits so well with that market. Even Keith Tkachuk came out and was like, look, just because Matthew did this, he's always been a bright lights, big city kind of guy. I'm paraphrasing, but Keith Tkachuk was basically like, I don't think Brady's leaving Ottawa. Right. Yeah. Like loves his teammates, loves the community. He started his family there. And so as long as Ottawa's competitive, right?
Yeah, I think he's
probably.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Like, yeah,
it'll be fine. Okay, a couple more questions. We've gone way over time, by the way, but I just want to quickly get to these. Now the EP40 is playing better, at least points wise. Do you think the market is better if the Canucks want to deal him? Probably would be, but again, like I guess if you wanted to do like a full rebuild, Pettersson's probably part of that thing. But if you can get the old Pettersson, if there's still a chance there, you got to keep him because there just aren't Petterssons around. It's like, again, like I mentioned with Kaprizov, there's just not many Kaprizovs out there. Like you could get a first round pick, but is that player going to end up being like a superstar? It's hard to gauge that. Like, we've seen players that like who's the guy Montreal took, Slavkovsky or whatever. Like, is he ever going to be on the level of like a Bedard Celebrini? I don't know. I mean, it's not looking that way right now, but maybe he will be. But I just think that like, that's something you have to bank on. Look at the Islanders with Matthew Schaefer. Like, he might make Team Canada. Like that's how good he's playing. He looks legit. And like, that was just one of those things where the Islanders kind of lucked out and got that pick with them missing the playoffs last year. But I mean, it just goes to show like he's now a foundational cornerstone piece for them. While on the other side, like you've got like the Flyers who got, what was it, Nolan Patrick? Who's the guy they drafted a number of years ago and he had concussion issues? I think it was him. Like it just, sometimes things happen, right? So
Zegras is back. If I can add something to that point, if you're going to keep Pettersson, you got to get a legit first liner to play with him. Look what's happening in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Matthews was the best goal scorer in the league for nearly 10 years. And now he's not even a point per game, right? You take Marner out of the equation. Like superstars go that extra level because they have somebody who understands them on the ice playing with them, whether they're the shooter, whether they're the playmaker, whether one's the slick dangler and the other one is the physical presence who clears space for them. You need those pairs. And I don't think Vancouver has that right now for Pettersson, that kind of like that level of support. So if you're going to keep him, that's the ironic part is if you're going to commit to the rebuild or not. But if you're keeping Pettersson, you got to get him somebody to play with.
And they've tried. Like, actually, one of his better seasons was with Kuzmenko. And then, of course, what happened was once they hired Tocchet, because Tocchet does this to every player, they're now dealing with it with Michkov in Philly. He just, like, takes the fun out of their play because he's so defensive-minded. So, because Kuzmenko can't play defense. That's why he's bounced around a bunch. So, but he was like a good
Travis Greenback. Can't have him.
No, I know. Well, I will say this on record, Andrew, because I keep an eye on Ottawa. I think them losing Mike Yeo, apparently there was like a bit of a pay issue there. I think them losing him last season was a big reason why Canucks had so many issues. I think he's a great assistant coach. I don't think he's head coach material. I know he has been head coach before, but I think I think you guys got one of the best coaching staffs in the league, in my opinion.
And look at DJ Smith in LA, right? His tenure as head coach in Ottawa, total disaster. LA is one of the best defensive teams in the league. It's suffocating. He's in
with
charge
Brian
of
Dumoulin and Cody Ceci.
But DJ Smith is their defensive coach.
I know.
And Ottawa was a defensive disaster on his watch, like absolute disaster. And so absolutely, like, some guys are just cut out to be assistant coaches. And for the love of God, I hope Alfredson is an assistant coach forever and never the head coach. Like, because then eventually you got to fire a franchise legend, right? Even Carolina is going to have to fire Rod Brindamore at some point, right? What are you going to do?
I don't know. They keep losing in the Eastern Final, and nobody thinks it's a big deal. So I don't know.
What a problem to have, right?
No, I know, but I speak about this all the time on the show, and actually, we'll end on this. I know people get tired of me talking about this, but I get so annoyed at how little pushback the media gives Carolina and a few of these other teams that like for example, Carolina like butchered the Rantanen trade. Yes, they got Stankoven out of it in the end, but like they did the same thing with Getzel. They couldn't re-sign him. I feel like, I don't know why, because they're like because they got Tulsky and he's like an analytics like darling. Like the media just sucks up to Carolina and certain teams so much, and it's just annoying to witness from afar because it's like they haven't done anything. Like, yes, they made the final, and I know that's a good accomplishment, but this is also a team that can't get over the hump. Like, at some point, they got to be criticized for not getting to the final, I think. Yeah. So I don't know. That's
I agree. My rant. I think it's when you have rabid fan bases who, if they're being presented with like, well, what's the term I'm looking for here? But if you're being presented with a product and you're saying, hey, this is a shiny new Ferrari, it's like, no, this is a broken down 1976 Pinto, right? No relation to Sztein.
To Sztein, yeah, exactly. I was thinking that too.
So eventually people will start pushing back on that narrative, but I don't think you have that issue in places like Florida and Carolina, right? These places, you're just, if you suck,
like as an example, you subscribe,
exist, right?
You subscribe to The Athletic, do you not?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. They always like just everything is always about. I don't know. I've been a subscriber for years. They always fawn over Carolina, New Jersey, Montreal, and it's like any other team that's like has any sort of moderate success. It's like they never get mentioned. I don't know. I get annoyed with it, and I think part of it is it's the analytics side. They're like, wow, analytically they're good, but it's like, dude, they messed up a couple trade deadlines, and then they keep losing in the Eastern Final. Like, where's the pushback? If this was another market, like you said, if it was Toronto or whatever. I mean, Toronto has their own issues, but let's say for example, Calgary. We'll use that as an example. If they went to the Eastern Final every year, there'd be way more of a microscope of them not getting over the hump. I know it's good to make the playoffs. Yeah.
Imagine if a Canadian team acquired Rantanen and then traded him again 6 weeks later.
I know, and there was like no pushback. There was a guy on Twitter, I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but he was like, just hand the Jim Gregory Award to Tulsky because of them going far in the playoffs. I'm like, how do you not know the guy you're acquiring doesn't want to play for you? Like, yeah. How did you not even get
that? How did you not do this? Anyway, yeah.
I've gone way over time, Andrew. Thank you so much for doing this. Always a pleasure. We could have gone on for like another 2 hours.
You've saved me from having to clear the leaves out of the backyard for a little longer. So
yes, that's what it really comes down to. Anything you got coming up? I know you're busy, but anything you got coming up, and anyone in the Greater Toronto area that needs a DJ, they can.
So DJ life has been exceptionally busy this year. My successful year ever with doing that. Met some celebrities at recent gigs. Now that we're more on corporate side of things, which has been kind of cool. I interacted with Mike Pinball Clemens and
Ian nice. I met him. Super nice guy.
Oh, incredible dude. I was so impressed by him. But yeah, more articles coming on the hockey news. As DJ season slows down and hockey season kind of picks up and the narratives start popping out more. Shout out to Steve Warren, who's always been really, really supportive of both my schedule and my writing, which has been really nice. You can follow me on Twitter, which I still refuse to call X, at Sztein Creative. I post my articles there. And yep, that's about it. For coming up, I'm looking forward to getting really nicely acquainted with some emulators in my PlayStation. And,
we got to talk. I've been big into that lately, so we'll talk in our chat. I'll be back next week, guys. I think I might get Avery back on next week to talk about the Oilers because that's been a hot topic right now. We'll see where they're standing come this time next week. But appreciate you guys tuning in. My name is James Lynch, as you know. I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Take care.
Bye, guys.